Welcome to our second arena meta report in Rise of Shadows. Just days after our first report, class strengths have been tweaked via a new arena balance update. Let's start with breaking down what has changed. When class win rates are tweaked, class cards are targeted. Top classes like Warlock will see less premium cards, such as Abyssal Enforcer and Evil Genius. Conversely, a bad class such as Warrior will have its premium cards show up more often. Blizzard never releases specific data on what cards are being targeted, but we can have a pretty good idea using third-party data. Mage, Druid, and Paladin were buffed with this tweak. The arena community found it odd that Mage needed an adjustment. Flame Strike was already seen everywhere, and the new busted card Conjurer's Calling saw a rise in appearance. Rogue, another odd choice, had its premium class picks decreased even further. Rogue already experienced a negative adjustment in the second week of Rise of Shadows. After that change, HS Replay found Rogue to be near the bottom half of class win rates. With this update, Rogue's win rate dropped even further. Before we talk about the specifics of each class, let's look at the current class tier list. These classes are much closer in power level than before. Even though we list Rogue in tier 3, it's not too far off from tier 2. With the bucket system, you can do well with any class if you put sufficient time into discovering the best way to draft them. So, while Warrior might still be bad, it's not unpickable. What changed in tier 1? Despite Warlock's nerf, it still does well across the field. Though it may seem obvious, we can declare with confidence that the Zoo style works really well. Our arena expert Tachi had made decks with no Evil Geniuses or Abyssal Enforcers and still got away with high wins. The strength of Warlock lies in the hero power. Warlock doesn't need to rely on premium cards when the hero power can refill your hand. By prioritizing a solid early game curve featuring at least 3 1-drops and 5 2-drops to start, you can take control of the board early and still finish the game with multiple sources of direct damage. With that said, Gul'dan feels weaker than before, but not enough to leave tier 1. Hunter now feels close to being the best class in Arena. The key cards they have are Marked Shot and Unleash the Beast. Both cards give the Hunter so much gas that it's almost guaranteed to outvalue most classes in the long game. The impact of Marked Shot is due to how many premium spells are in Hunter's arsenal. These spells deal with most situations, and are often impossible to play around. There are also multiple win conditions for Hunter. You can try outvaluing the opponent, or you can use beast synergies with 1-drop beasts and Scavenging Hyena. You can have finishers such as Call of the Wild and Kill Command to deal the final blow, or you can even have a powerful mid-game with Shaky Zip Gunner, Unleash the Beast, and strong neutral minions. There are multiple ways to win, but we find the best option is to draft a strong mid-game with plenty of removal options. Here's an example of a 12-win deck that had just this strategy in mind. The class still has one major weakness, a wide board. Unleash the Hounds is strong, but the class overall has trouble dealing with multiple small minions. This should tell you that drafting for an early game curve is quite important. Priest and Mage fill up the next 2 classes in tier 1. Mage still feels like a high roll class, but can get lucky more consistently now with more premium cards. Conjurer's Calling is absolutely the card you draft around, and you're aiming for about 2 to 4 board clears to create important swing turns as a win condition. Priest is perhaps the strongest mid-range class in the arena. If you cannot deal with a 3-2 on turn 2, you can instantly lose the game if Cabal Talon Priest gets played the turn after. A particularly strong card for Priest is Squashling. The mid-range archetype has a lot of high health minions, and they're often damaged by turn 6. Healing them up will be the final nail in the coffin in most games. The class is fairly straightforward, and is primed to deal with the current pool of strong neutral minions. Cabal Songstealer deals with Eccentric Scribe, Mind Control can take a burly Shovel Fist to kill another minion, and high health minions in general deal with early game aggression pretty well. The class shares a similar weakness to Hunter. A wide board can be especially problematic when Dragonfire Potion appears rarely in the draft. If your opponent curves better than you, and you cannot stick a minion on board, Cabal Talon Priest is much worse as a result. Tier 2 is much more balanced than before, with Druid, Paladin, and Shaman in the mix. These classes are honestly not that far away from Tier 1, but may suffer from inconsistent results. Our arena expert Tachi experienced success with all 3 classes. According to him, Shaman feels the least consistent of the 3. You will see some truly outstanding decks at high wins, but we definitely saw our fair share of weaker decks. 2 Walking Fountains seem to be the core of all Shaman decks, but that alone is not enough. You also want a couple of early game weapons, about 6 2-drops to synergize with the overload of weapons, and finishers to end the game. Having a board clear or two can be useful, but Lightning Storm is often pitted against Walking Fountain and Hex, which are 2 important cards you also want in your deck. When facing Shaman, you want to look at their overload to see if they can play Walking Fountain on 8. The general plan to win against them is to curve out really well, so the Walking Fountain isn't enough to bring them back into the game. That said, Hagatha's Scheme and Lightning Storm can throw a major wrench in your game plan. Druid has been stellar after the balance update. The token game plan, along with 4 board buffs, seems to be more consistent. We recommend an aggressive curve with 3 1-drops, 6 2-drops, and 4 3-drops to start. Acorn Bearer is basically the best card in its bucket, and only the first Force Aid should be picked up over it. As common as Burly Shovelfist is, this card should not belong in this token archetype. There are a ton of good curve minions and spells you'd want over it. The token style is an interesting way to draft as the deck typically has less removal. Part of the reason is because Druid simply doesn't have enough good removal tools. Swipe is in the best bucket, but we find you absolutely need to hit 4 board buffs to excel with this archetype. So, it will often be skipped for Mark of the Lotus or Power of the Wild. This archetype is weak against multiple late-game taunts and strong mid-game board clears, such as Volcanic Potion and Hellfire. Paladin has an interesting playstyle as well. We do not think hand buffs such as Smuggler's Run or Grime Street Outfitter are a consistent strategy, but we do believe in the strength of secrets, specifically Avenge and Desperate Measures. The strength lies in the necessity to play something on turn 1. Paladins need to curve out from turn 1 to have a chance against early game aggression. Secret synergies also are insanely powerful. The class's major weakness is that it is a bit too fair, with the exception of Silver Sword. You can lose to Tall Priest boards, a Mage's Conjurer's Calling, and aggressive Warlock or Druid decks. Lastly, in Tier 3, we're not going to get into it too much, especially on the details with Warrior and Rogue. Despite win rates on HS Replay, these 2 classes aren't terrible, but they often don't feel that good either. Rogue will always be decent because of the strong hero power. The class needs a decent mid-range curve, and it can still win with tempo. It just feels like top classes like Priest and Hunter can often do the same job, but better. Warrior, on the other hand, has an interesting problem. Even with better cards, the issue is many of its premium cards are weapons. You don't want that many weapons in your deck, and your hero power does not have much board impact. It is reasonably good against slower mid-range decks, but once again, it feels other classes can do it better. Warrior is slightly better than before, but not by much. It's a class that you don't need to have a specific mindset against, as it rarely shows up in Arena. For our final thoughts, the Arena meta after this update stayed mostly the same with the exception of certain class strengths. Token strategies remain successful, and a consistent early game feels necessary. If you're looking for more Arena strategy, check out our first Arena meta report in the Rise of Shadows as we go more in depth about key themes of the expansion. What have you experienced after the balance update? Comment below, and as always, like and subscribe for more Tempestorm news and Hearthstone content. We'll see you next time, and good luck in the arena.